Number 2, an Italian company wishes to begin constructing apartment buildings in Shanghai. Although this is an encouraged area of investment, they feel better setting up with a Chinese partner who has knowledge of the business area in China. This is important because it enables them to utilize this local knowledge, to have an idea of everything from getting contractors to choosing the real estate. Also, getting government approvals with a Chinese partner is often much easier because there is much more of a trust relationship there. Next is wholly foreign-owned ventures, which are 100% owned by foreign enterprises. These are far and away the most popular means of doing business in China because you don't have to give up any control. Unfortunately, though, it's not available in all sectors. There are several sectors where it is closed off, i.e. the restricted areas of investment. The approval process takes between 2 and 6 months in eastern cities to over a year in the western provinces. You have to provide many documents such as an environmental impact report, feasibility report. You must get tax registration, business license registration, name registration. These kind of things can take a lot of time. And the government was really interested in establishing wholly foreign-owned ventures in high-tech areas or environmentally friendly areas where you will find you get approval much more easily because China really welcomes investments in these areas. Today, in 2008, 85% of the businesses establishing in China utilize the wholly foreign-owned venture business structure. Examples: an American company wishes to set up an electronics manufacturing plant in Guangzhou. The company wishes to have complete control over the venture and does not want to profit share with a Chinese partner. So perfect, it's a high-tech kind of area. They can come in, exclusively foreign-owned, and they can then repatriate the profits overseas. Example 2, a Dutch company wants to set up a plant manufacturing irrigation equipment and is concerned about sharing its intellectual property information with a local partner, so decides to go it alone, 100% foreign-owned enterprise, and does not have to share its IP knowledge with a Chinese partner. Last is foreign invested commercial enterprise, which just really allows you to do almost everything. You can sell, import, warehouse, distribute, train staff, deliver, manufacture, and export. It's only been available since 2005, and it was necessitated by China's accession to the World Trade Organization. China maybe would not have liked to have done this so fast, but through its WTO obligations, it had to allow foreign enterprises to come in and establish business areas with the following scopes. So it can really do almost everything, but again, getting approval is quite difficult, the procedure is quite long, and you really have to know your stuff, provide a good feasibility report, projecting business figures for 3 years, make sure your registered capital is paid up, and really have a solid business plan before the authorities will grant you the license to establish a foreign invested commercial enterprise. So here's an example. A French paper company wants to enter the Chinese market by importing paper products for distribution and sale in China. Previously, you could import but not distribute, which meant you had to have a Chinese business partner anyway. Since 2005, the company can both import and distribute and sell in China. 2, an Indian company has been importing food products into China for over a decade. They have traditionally relied on a Chinese state-controlled company to distribute their products, as distribution was not allowed under their wholly foreign-owned entity business structure, so they changed to a foreign-invested commercial enterprise structure in order to allow them to both import and distribute their products in China. Investment vehicles. Alex spoke earlier a little about investment vehicles. These are special purpose vehicles with shelf companies in Hong Kong, Mauritius, or the British Virgin Islands, which basically is the holding company of your company in mainland China. So if you establish a Hong Kong company, then that Hong Kong company establishes the business in mainland China. The reason you do this is to allow you to exit China more easily. Getting into China is easy, but getting permission to close down an enterprise in China is much more difficult. If you have a holding company in Hong Kong, or a special purpose vehicle in Hong Kong that holds the company in China, all you need to do is sell your share in the Hong Kong company, and that's the end of it. Also, you minimize the amount of taxes paid, because Hong Kong does not tax enterprises which do not directly do business in Hong Kong. And you can use what we call transfer pricing strategies to better repatriate funds. For example, the holding company in Hong Kong can own the intellectual property rights, which then license these rights to the Chinese subsidiary. This Chinese subsidiary then pays quite a lot of money for the use of these rights, which is a way of getting money out of China that are not through the official channels. This is what many companies are interested in because, as you are well aware, getting money out of China can be quite problematic at times. So what you have to think about is where to set up in China. China is a huge country, one of the largest in the world, with vastly different climates, geographical characteristics, and infrastructure. So you have to think about development. Obviously, the whole coastal area is the most developed, in particular the Yangtze River Delta around Jiangsu and Zhejiang provinces, the south around Guangdong, and the area of Beijing, Shandong, and parts of Liaoning are far and away the most developed parts of China. But if you invest in the West, you do still get tax breaks. In spite of the WTO accession, you can still get tax breaks for investing in Western China. For sourcing, obviously, you want to be close to where you can source your products. If you have a factory in China, the best place in the country for this is Guangdong. You can source almost everything, any kind of factory component, any kind of component for more or less everything in the Guangdong area. If you set up in Western China thinking, great, I get tax breaks, and then you want to source things, you might have to import them 1,500 miles away, which is not the best situation to be in. Wages and staff, wages are higher in the East, but much easier to get good staff. Wages are lower in the West, but harder to get good staff. And most importantly, the government in the eastern provinces is much more attuned to doing business in China, is much more in tune to foreign investment. And you might find it easier to get approvals because simply they're more used to doing business with foreigners. So money, basically each year your company can call for a dividend payment. This is your way to remove your profits from China. It can only be done once a year and can only be done after all taxes have been paid up and your company has gone through a tax audit. This is not necessarily problematic. However, you may want to be able to repatriate funds more flexibly and more often. The way to do this, as discussed before, is through transfer pricing, where you have management consultancy agreements with your Hong Kong shelf company, or you have IP arrangements with your Hong Kong shelf company, where you basically pay your Hong Kong shelf company for the expertise of management consulting or intellectual property rights. This is the best way to get money out of China outside the official channels. China has a very complex banking system for foreign exchange, necessitating up to 3 or 4 different accounts for moving money from China, depending on the way you do it. This is quite a complex area. Obtaining loans, it can be done in China, but you'll find the taxation rates are not as preferential as overseas. Also, you might find it easier to get money overseas from your parent company, because the parent company will have established business in a different country, therefore get a lower interest rate. Coming into China fresh, they don't know who you are, therefore they will give you a higher interest lending rate. Staffing human capital is an essential part of doing business in China. What you need is a comprehensive employment package for all your employees, which since just this year, 2008, you need a package of 9 separate labor arrangements with each employee. This is to ensure that your employees do not appropriate work they did when they were working for you. They don't compete with you when your labor-employment relationship ends, and associated matters. Interviewing and hiring obviously will be different in China than what you're used to at home. China has a huge supply of educated graduates, but obviously doing things in China is different than doing things overseas, and in this regard you have to be prepared for the different Chinese culture and business relationships. So this is the end of my presentation. Thanks for listening. I'll pass it over to my colleague, Daisy Xu.
Thank you very much.